Hi, this is Lisa Amputee, bringing you Pushing the Limits, the show that gets deep into the psyche of limit pushers across all genres. Out-of-the-box thinkers, cutting-edge researchers, leaders, athletes, academics, entrepreneurs, and social change innovators and more. Cutting to the chase to unlock the secrets of their success, their achievements, their philosophies and motivation. Join me in my quest to find out what makes the movers and shakers of our world tick and what gems of wisdom we can take from their experiences. Brought to you by runninghotcoaching.com, the platform that helps you achieve your health and fitness goals. Well, welcome everybody to the show, Pushing the Limits, the show where we get deep into the psyche of limit pushers across all genres. And today we have a very, very special guest, someone that I'm very proud to have on my show, and that is the amazing Mark Inglis. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lisa.
Great to have you on here. Now, Mark, I've got a list of all your achievements here. I don't know whether I should introduce you and say everything that you've done, but we might be here for an hour. So,
well, that'd save you asking me embarrassing questions, so that might work.
It might indeed. Well, Mark Inglis, as most New Zealanders know, is quite an incredible person, a mountaineer extraordinaire who lost his lower legs in 1982. But has since gone on to climb Cho Oyu, which is a 8,000er in the Himalayas. He's also climbed Mt Everest. He's also, what perhaps not everybody knows, a silver medalist from the Paralympics in 2000 in cycling in the 1 kilometre time trial. But outside of that, Mark is also the founder of Limbs for All, which is a charitable trust that he has initiated, and is a businessman, winemaker, motivational speaker, researcher, and all-round overachiever. Does that sort of sum it up in a nutshell there, Mark?
Well, you'd probably sum it up best by just saying I get bored easily. So, yeah, I should have stuck at one of those things, probably.
Heck no, goodness no. The world wouldn't be such a good place if you'd have stuck at one thing. Now, Mark, in the show, we're going to sort of talk to you about what makes you tick, what your philosophies on life is, what you've learnt through doing everything that you have, and just share with our listeners a little bit what makes someone like you tick. How do they tap into some of the lessons that you've learned, some of the wisdom that you have? So, Mark, let me start by taking everyone right back to 1982 when you were with your climbing partner Philip Dool on Mount Cook for 13 days, stuck in a snow cave. Can you talk me through that experience a little bit?
It was a pretty unique time, really. Unique in the fact that Phil and I were both search and rescue mountaineers, and in fact I was one of the two team leaders that year. And so for us to get stuck was a combination of a bit of bad luck and perhaps a wee bit of overconfidence, as they say, but that's what every climber has. But it ended up being unique because we had the skills and the knowledge, really, and also the faith in the whole system, our search and rescue system, to ensure that we did the right things to survive, to ensure that we didn't panic.
Yep.
And that, I guess the big lesson that came out of 1982 out of Middle Peak Hotel is that, you know, with the right knowledge and with the right faith to make the right decisions, then, you know, you can get through some amazing things.
I think the odds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it really was pretty much against the odds to survive for 13 days in those sort of conditions.
Well, pretty much the longest anyone has is around about 9 days. So, you know, we didn't have much left in the tank, though, at the end. We thought we had probably between 12 and 18 hours left of life.
Oh.
And Dick Price, a very experienced mountain surgeon who was down the bottom, he reckoned we had probably 12 hours left of life. But
wow.
Obviously we were a bit more overconfident.
which you need to be in a situation like that. How did you keep a hold on your emotions during that whole time and not to just panic and freak out? And I know part of it's training, being a mountaineer, being very experienced, but when you're getting close to death and your mate's getting close to death, it must be very hard not to lose the plot, so to speak.
Yeah, it is, and I lost the plot and sort of in some ways, in that I got quite delirious due to a chest infection on the second to last day, and I was pretty keen to walk out of there in my bare frostbitten feet, but needless to say that was impossible, and a clip around the ear from Phil helped that along. And a lot of it was the fact that we were both in there, we were both strong personalities, even though quite different. But we were both analytical, and our isolation really meant that you could put a lot of the elements of feeling guilty for being stuck there, worrying about your family, and all those things. You get to a stage where you put all those to one side, and your job is to survive.
Yep.
It's and that's your job, and that really was our total focus.
And that must have been the only reason that you did manage to get out alive. What was the rescue effort like? Like, it must have been a horrendously big rescue situation for the mountain rescuers back then. What sort of logistics were involved in getting you guys off there?
Well, I mean, it was huge, but we didn't know anything about it until we're driving from Mount Cook to Christchurch Hospital, and we got the ambulance to stop at Fairley on the way through, and brought a copy of the Christchurch Star, and that had a picture of our snow cave on the front page, and we're going, whoa, wish we were in a snow cave that nice, And
you actually stopped off on the way to the hospital, despite you nearly being dead and your legs needing to be amputated, etc. Did you know at that point that you were going to lose your legs?
No, but we definitely knew we'd lose toes.
Yeah.
I was paramedic by training. For me, it was like your very own Discovery Channel program about frostbite playing at the end of your feet. You go, they do go white and waxy. It's like, and it was just like all your training had come true. And it's we stopped off at my mum's in Geraldine because Mum was worried that we'd be a bit peckish, and she had scones with jam and cream. They had the back doors of the ambulance open, and we were sipping tea. You could do that in 1982.
That's a fantastic story. I love that. Your mum must have been beside herself, though. In reality, she must have been just glad to have you alive.
Yeah, but she'd had a son who'd been a mountaineer since the age of 12, so was getting pretty used to it by the time I got to 23.
Mum's marvellous, when you go and do these crazy things. I know I put my mum through a few of those moments too. Not quite that drastic, I don't think, but and tell us a little bit about your mum and your upbringing. So you were a mountaineer since the age of 12. You were obviously born to do this sort of stuff. Tell us how you got into it.
No, it's sort of like the opposite, really. I wasn't born to be a rugby player.
That was the dream, was it?
Oh, no, not even that. Not after my first game of rugby. I was a skinny little piece of whitebait, I'd been a sickly kid, and I was just a little beanpole, not even tall enough to be a beanpole. And so I was privileged to have a teacher who was a mountaineer, and he got a small group of us who were never going to make the rugby field, and took us out. I grew up in South Canterbury and out on Four Peaks on Little Mount Peel, and you instantly connect with the mountains. And so we weren't allowed to call ourselves an alpine club until we got to the age of 15, and by the time I was 16 I got within about 300 metres from the summit of Cook, from Aoraki.
Wow.
That's the climate when I was 17.
Jeez.
And so for me it was that was my rugby field, my cricket pitch, really.
So you weren't ever going to make it as a rugby player, so you did something else. You got to find your strengths in life, don't you?
I got to find a safer sport. You don't want to go get around getting beaten up continuously. It's
not so sure about the safety of that one, but I do understand the attraction of mountains and being outside and stuff. Were your parents sort of instrumental in that, or was it something you just got into?
It was something that I needed to get into. My mum and dad had to work so hard. Dad had been a shearer, and he was like a grader driver, and Mum worked pretty much right through the whole of our life, and as a shop assistant in haberdashery and menswear and things. Mm. And so I would cook tea every night, so got an abiding love of food even to this day.
That's a good thing.
It gave great skills in looking after yourself. But it gave you a great insight into the reason Mum and Dad worked so hard was to give my brother and sister and I guess, the opportunities. I still remember going on a tramping trip to Arthur's Pass, and everyone else had oilskin coats, which was back in our day was the Gore-Tex of the day.
Sure.
And I just had this little flimsy nylon windbreaker thing, and they presented me with this oilskin hunting jacket, my outdoor jacket, climbing jacket before I went, and I knew then exactly how much that cost my family. That cost them, that was huge, and I guess for that I've always been incredibly humbled and appreciative, really.
Yeah, so was it a really sort of good Kiwi upbringing, always in the outdoors, sort of full support from your parents by the sounds of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, Mum and Dad were never into sport at all.
Wow.
But that's the great vehicle of mountaineering and having a mentor like Bert, my teacher, and they gave the support that was needed. Yep, it's I turned the chook house out in the backyard of our section into a mountain hut. It took me a while to clean all the chook poo out, but got it all out.
It sounds brilliant. Now, when you grew up and you're an adult, you did a degree in human biochemistry. When was that? Was that because you said you're a paramedic as well? Yeah, that the degree came after me losing my leg. So when I was at Mount Cook, as a search and rescue mountaineer, we used to get sent to Burnham Army Camp and to do our paramedic training. And so we had very, very good paramedic training. And we were using it all day, every day at Mount Cook, and in almost war zone situations, really. Wow. And so we were very, very experienced. And it always niggled at me that I'd gone climbing instead of going to university, and I'd always sort of had that thing about perhaps being a doctor in the back of my mind. And so I always had that love of learning, of physiology, of understanding the body, and that's helped me hugely in my cycling and in my climbing and everything else. Yeah, and so I went back to university as an adult student. Anne and I had no legs, and so there wasn't much of a career for a double amputee mountaineer back in 1985 when I went away. I reckon I could make one now, though. I reckon you bloody well could too.
Yeah. But back then you couldn't convince anyone of that concept, so I went away to Lincoln University and did a degree, and I was lucky enough to discover science, discover physiology and biochemistry, and turned that into a career.
So what age were you then? You were like when you went back to uni?
25.
25. You're still a young fella. And your wife Anne was with you too. She was studying as well.
She was with us. She was at home, and but Anne has always had a career in an administration and teaching administration. So she worked at the DSIRs or I forget which one she was working for, MAF or for someone at Lincoln, and to help supplement. And I'd work barman at nights when I was at Lincoln.
Wow.
And we sort of managed to scrape up some money for a section and built a house on it and sold that, and that funded really the 4 years at university.
Fantastic. So has Anne been a really pivotal part of your life? How did she cope with you coming back with no legs, and The risks that you take.
Yeah, it's been always far harder for her than it ever has been for me. Because, we come from quite different backgrounds, so the concept of the situations I've put myself in as a mountaineer, Anne's always found quite difficult. Needless to say, there won't be another Everest in the future unless there's a divorce involved.
I can understand that. But she let you live your dreams. A lot of
that's
people
exactly
wouldn't.
Right. That's you've nailed it in one. And so she once described it as it's better to have a husband that's missing the odd toe, foot, or finger than have a grumpy Mark at home.
She sounds like quite an incredible lady.
Oh, she is, yeah.
And you've got 3 kids as well?
Yeah, 3 kids. Lucy, Jeremy, and Amanda, all grown up and leading their own lives in various places in the world now. Yeah.
Have any of them gone into mountaineering or anything?
No, they sort of grew up in the eras when I was doing different things. Lucy was growing up when I was at university, and so she sort of went down that line and has a double degree in law and psychology, and
wow.
Works at HR in USA at the moment. Jerry's, one could suggest he's a bit like me and he's never grown up, but he is a pro elite mountain biker and road cyclist, just finished the tour of Southland.
Wow, that's cool.
And he's just become a dad in the last 5 months as well, so which is pretty cool.
Oh, so you're a grandfather now.
Yeah. I'm not sure that word yet, but that's good. And so Jerry grew up when I was doing all of my cycling through the late 90s and early 2000s, so he got some really nice hand-me-down bikes. And that for him was a real saving grace as well, because he wasn't so crash hot at school. He's got a bit of the lack of attention that I've got. So he was finding school pretty tough, but the bike was perfect, and the culture of cycling, and it's exactly the same in what you do, and the runners, and having the senior people mentoring the young people, and it always comes better from someone else than from your parents, and he's really absolutely blossomed. He's a brand manager for a cycle import company, and
wow.
And still riding phenomenally well. So, and Amanda, my youngest, is doing her PhD in biochemistry.
Crikey, you've got a brood of overachievers, but like you guys.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Why do you think that is so, Mark? Why do you think you and your wife and your family have all achieved such incredible things? I mean, your bio reads like 10 people's bio. How did you fit all that into one life? And what drives you to pursue such impossible goals?
I wouldn't recommend it for everyone because it does take a wee bit of a toll, and if you're not set up for it, it can probably pretty much destroy you pretty quick. For me, I love to learn, and I love to interpret the things that I'm passionate about, and that's probably one of the most overused words around.
Yeah.
It's in mountaineering, you understand it because you put your life on your line. When you're really passionate about these sorts of things, so it's a place where you can use that word. But I think for my kids, it's they've seen me grow up. Okay, they've seen me grow up in that I was a young mountaineer who got a new challenge put in front of him. And if you're going to have your legs cut off when you're 23, then the best person is a young mountaineer, because you've been into challenge your whole life, and you've been putting your life on the line. By the time you get to 23 and you realise life's about to change, it's just a new challenge.
And that's the way you've approached it. So a lot of people would face a challenge like that and give up and go, well, that's me done. I'll take up a desk job somewhere. But you didn't go that route. How come? Why?
Yes, see, that's the really tough bit, because how can you think like that, Perhaps if you were already on the couch, but then you wouldn't lose your legs anyway, so that's right. So it's when you get off the couch that you run the risk, but if you've got the essence, the life force in you to get off the couch anyway, then having your legs chopped off is just having a couple of limbs chopped off. It's not having your soul, your intellect, or anything else removed. All it does is just open a new door for a whole new set of opportunities, really. Some of them are challenges and some are just plain opportunities. And I guess I've always been that my family always accused me of playing around in the lab too much and making myself an extra gene for overconfidence, And
it never knocked you. It didn't blow you to pieces and make you want to, hide in a corner somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, was just saying to Anne the other day, I said, I need another Everest, I need something like that. And she goes, well, you need to think pretty carefully about that because they haven't always worked out that crash hot for you,
There's not much more you can lose.
Yeah, I don't want to lose any more. So, and so I'm always on the lookout for that. But the tough thing, really, and that's for most of us out there in the normal world, which I consider myself in, is actually funding them.
Tell me about it.
It's people have an expectation that the funds just flowing, but it's extremely hard, just to make a living at doing this sort of thing if you live in New Zealand. Perhaps if we lived in the USA or somewhere else, it might be different, but here in New Zealand,
it's heartwarming to hear, actually, because I've really struggled. People always asking, well, what's next? And you're thinking, crikey, do you know how much it takes, effort-wise, getting sponsors and getting film crews and getting things organised for one expedition or one race? It does take a massive toll on your personal finances, your business, your family. And that's all when it goes to plan. When it goes to custard, it's a different story again.
Yeah, and I guess one of the hardest things for my family and for Anne and I is that you lose a bit of faith at some level in human nature. Because there are plenty of people that will say yes, but when it comes to doing the hard yards, to actually stepping up, all of a sudden there's a no. And it's much easier if people just fronted up and said no right from the start.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. That's so true. Instead of, tagging you along for months and months, you putting more work into chasing something because it's an open possibility and then they tell you no. It does make it difficult. And these things like Everest and Himalayan expeditions, they cost horrendous amounts of money.
Yeah,
that for someone though with your background, with your history, with your achievements and your academic side as well, surely it would be a lot easier than it is for someone like me.
I think it just takes as much, and it also depends. I'm not a particularly good networker, so living here in Hamner, it does make life a bit more difficult. So
that's
I've never been the schmoozing type person, so that always puts you at a bit of a disadvantage. And there's a lot of mountaineers that are like that. Actually, they're more focused on the mountains than on anything else. And so I've had to learn to do those things. I wrote, I think it was something like about 76 letters for sponsorship to major corporations and the like for Everest, and only 3 returned a reply. And it's just like, wow, come on, guys, it's time to step up.
And you get other sports where it's just shoved in their back pockets, left, right, and centre, which is extremely frustrating, isn't it?
Yes, I've heard your frustration on the being interviewed occasionally, and it's like, I can see where you're coming from, sister.
It's not very popular when you do that, but it is frustrating. But because people that are pushing the limits, just like the title of this show, are pioneering ways for others to follow, and there is a huge value to society in people who will go that extra distance, who are role models, who are pushing the limits of what humans can do. And I think it would be great if that was valued, but at the end of the day, I suppose corporates just want bums on seats, money in the account. If they can't quantify it immediately, then they don't want to be involved.
I can totally understand. I've worked with a lot of corporates. I've been embedded in one as a senior winemaker at Mountaineer. I created Peak Fuel, the sports food brand, which we sold about 5 or 6 years ago. and so I have a very, very good understanding of sponsorship, and I can see where, in many cases, I just don't fit in. And so it's like, get over that and go and find some other avenues. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is one of the things that you come out with is you just need to look for the opportunity. It's I don't know, I saw on Facebook must have been a year or more ago, and I use it all the time, and it's that story about the optimist, the pessimist, and they were just sitting there looking at the glass of wine, and is it half full or is it half empty?
Yep.
Well, actually, one guy just whipped straight in, drank the thing, and he was the opportunist. And that's what we need to be. You need to always be looking for the opportunity, and that can be really hard to do. It takes a lot of and especially if you have people around you who don't necessarily see it that way, or who aren't as confident, or have a different way of looking at things. But you have to find the opportunity out there, and there is an opportunity in absolutely everything, and so it's finding it and then maximizing it. The disadvantages and the things that will hold you back are always going to be there, but the less attention you pay at them and the more attention you pay at stepping up and getting over them and getting around them, then that's I think for any of us.
I think, yeah, like one of the things that I lecture on when I'm doing talks is like obstacles are always going to come in your way, and it's what type of person you are, whether you're one that will dig underneath it, go around it, find a way over it, even if it takes you a couple of years, or are you someone just blames and excuses and I can't get round it and denies it being your responsibility. And I think that baseline of attitude of seeking out opportunities, of networking, of finding possibilities in every, cloud that comes your way is the only way to move forward.
Yeah, and I mean, in many cases, there are things that you just can't do anything about. There are road rules. There are lots of things that you just have to work within, and then find the outlet somewhere else. There's lots of instances, and I've been through a lot of it, both in my personal life and my corporate life, where change is overlaid, on top of you. It's just dumped down on top of you. And you hear so many people moaning and carrying on about the change that's happening, when the thing that really defines you as a person is how you react to that change, how you take ownership of that change and use it to your benefit. And that's why, in a lot of corporates that I work with, real culture change can take 4, 5, 6 years, because it takes that long to get these people to get their head around it. If they can get their head around that even sooner, then things can change, nearly always for the better. But the big thing is just not to be obsessed about something, but to always keep, that peripheral vision going to make sure you're going in the right direction.
So flexibility is in the face of adversity, really, or in the face of massive change. I mean, society in the last 10 years has gone through, we all know the technology revolution, and it's hard to keep up. It's hard to every industry is changing, and I think for people, like yourselves and what I do too, working with corporates to deal with change management and deal with embracing whatever's coming at you rather than sitting in the mud and going, well, I can't change it and I'm going to stay stuck in my ways. I mean, one of my businesses is, by trade, I'm a jeweler, I'm a goldsmith, and that has been revolutionised in the last 10, 12 years. Where when I did it, everything was handmade. It was, all the old traditions which I loved, and now it's all CAD, computer produced, mass produced in China, and the soul has gone with it. And I have complained about that for a number of years and how hard it is to survive. But now I've just decided, well, I'll just go in the direction that I want to be involved in and stop moaning about it and develop other interests, because I don't want to go along that computer route. Or mass production in China route, so I stick to my things, but it's a waste of time complaining about it, It's dealing with the situation as is, becoming an artist, getting recognition as an artist, and developing that side of it instead of lamenting what was once the case, you know.
And I mean, that's the thing that holds everyone back, and you know, it's I have to constantly remind myself of that as well. And it's the you know, it's not all a box of roses. You know, it's what was Forrest Gump. You know, life's a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. You know, it's and so it really is a box of chocolates. And some days you know, there's something a bit sour in there, and really it's having strategies to cope with those times and then maximize the good times. But for a lot of people, it's having the strategies and the skills. And sometimes, you know, you've got to go and hit up a psychologist. You've got to go and hit up someone that's got a lot more in-depth learning around it than you. You know, back in 1982, we had no counselling or anything. You know, we just got a set of legs, and then it was just, you know, go for it. You know,
deal with it. Yep.
Yeah, deal with it. And you know, and we we're both Phil and I were overachievers in so many different ways. Phil was trekking in the Peruvian Andes, you know, within probably 6 months of getting a set of legs, and it was just things that, oh, you know, you're not supposed to do that. And it was well, actually, it's just you know, you've been served up this, now it's the time to deal with it. And I totally credit growing up a young mountaineer that gives you that, and that's been hugely beneficial in my business life. But a lot of the learnings that I've taken from industrial psychology, it's we work very closely with some psychologists and the whole Montana journey of changing the culture of the company. And I learned so much from that I can apply in my personal life.
Wow.
You know, and every now and then I have to go back to it and have a read through and have an understanding, and then find someone that I can share it with that understands as well. And probably for a 56-year-old New Zealand male, one of the hardest things you can do is actually find someone to share it with, and or ask for help. Yeah.
But yeah, men don't do that, do they?
No, they don't. No, they don't. And especially mountaineering men are even worse than a lot. But
very macho, very tough.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing I've had to learn, you know, and that's when you really find out who your friends are, real friends. Okay, and sometimes you have to go and you know, find a professional friend, and you know, they're the learnings that I've had to take over the last years, really. So
there is a softer side to Mark Inglis, and I mean, what we see on paper and what you've done in your life. You look like you're bulletproof, basically. You're a machine, Superman. Is there another side to Mark that's, you know, had to deal with some deep issues at all? I mean, I know in my life, again, you look on paper and you think, well, yeah, that's pretty, you know, hardcore. On the other side, I've had a lot of issues around depression, nervous breakdown. You know, you name it, I've been there pretty much. And that is not an anomaly for me. It's part of your personality. Have you had issues along those lines?
Well, I think it's part of everyone that really strives to achieve at the level that you do, Lisa, that I strive to achieve at, because it's not easy, and it also takes a lot of intensity of personality to do that. And that has its upsides and its downsides. It's you know, my family came to me probably a year ago and said, we think you're still dealing with things. I had a very rough time post Everest in 2006.
Yep.
Very, very tough time, you know, and I'm actually only just really starting to learn to deal with that now, and I've had to go and get some help for that. And a lot of that was also that, you know, some people consider it, you know, still dealing with 1982. I don't necessarily see that. You know, that for me is less of an issue. But it's having strategies to deal with, you know, simple things like how people think of you.
Yes.
Self-worth issues when you actually don't do as well as you'd like to do. Because to run those things that you run, and you know, the loneliness of the running, the you know, the purity of the intensity of spirit of what you do is, and similar in the mountains and similar on the fight.
Yep.
It's they take a toll, but they take a lot of intensity, and yeah, I've just woken up to the fact that I actually need a bit of help around some of that.
And that's brilliant to share that, because there are a lot of young men out there who come up against the problem and try and hit it with bricks instead of actually looking at some of the issues, and that it's okay, and when you are someone who strives in pursuit of excellence, and you're your hardest judge on yourself, I mean, after my last few years, I've really had some post-traumatic stress come out of the things that I've done, which sounds quite ridiculous, really. I didn't get shot at or anything, but the amount of pain and the amount of suffering that you go through does lead to some damage, some psychological damage. And part of the thing that I've been going through recently is, I'm 47, I'm getting older, my body's not doing quite what it used to, and the passion for doing the long distance running isn't there. And so my whole identity's just gone, well, who the hell am I then, am I losing it? Am I old? And facing those types of issues. Have you had, issues around that, or like post Everest and all the dramas that went on there? That's been hard to deal with.
Yeah, it has. Not the climb. That's my raison d'etre. The mountains are where I feel most comfortable, and in fact here at home in Hamner, I do the hermit thing occasionally, and I just pack up the bivvy bag or the tent and disappear up the back for a day, just for a night, just to reset the head. Really, it's all the peripheral stuff that was exactly as you explained it. It's you don't have to be shot at to get PTSD. Or the experience what that's like. The pain and the focus and the intensity of the things that we do. And my wife has always said, she gives me a clip round the ear and said, "You made it look too easy." You need to cry more often. On TV preferably.
I'm good at that. Yeah. I'm a girl. I get away with it. You see?
Yeah, I know you get away with it. And I'm a shocker for doing that. I do. It's like I'm a reasonably emotional person. So, and I appreciate emotion immensely. So, but also being that way means that you can perhaps take a lot of baggage along with you if things don't work out, or that. I guess I must have a pretty high pain threshold, because I'll do things that other people won't do, and I'm going, what? Come on, and
come on.
People are going, you've got to be mad. I'm going, well, no, this is normal, It's like, and so a bit of mad and normal's good.
We're mad in certain different ways, than other people. I think it's madness to do nothing with your life and just, treat your body like it's carrying your brain around. This. I need the physicalness of being out in nature, and for me it's not extreme mountains, but it's just, like you say, I need to get away. I find it really hard in today's society with the whole pressures, especially in the business that we're in, with sponsorships and speaking and all the rest. You have to be engaged with the media, with your profile, everything all the time. And sometimes I just want to run away and, climb a mountain or go out bush and just turn off the grid, But you can't afford to for too long, It's part of what you got to deal with. And often I think doing the runs are the easy part. It's the preparation, the logistics, the selling yourself, the marketing yourself. That's the hard part, But I wouldn't change it for the world either. It's living your life to the full, and it's doing what you wanted to do. But I think one of the main messages that I've got out of this conversation is that it's okay to cry. It's okay to have doubts. It's okay to feel like you're not bulletproof. And even, coming from one of the toughest men in New Zealand, if not the world, to acknowledge that, I think, is immensely powerful for other men and other people.
Yeah, it is, but it's also the next step. It's it's like standing on top of a mountain. You're only halfway. You have to get down, and getting down for me is the hardest thing. So, and any of these things, if you want to be honest with yourself, the biggest lesson I learned was to stand outside of myself, look back in, and see the Mark Inglis that everyone else sees. And it's only by doing that you can understand people's compliments or their criticisms of you. You might want to change, you may not want to change, but you have to be aware of that. And that's the first step in understanding, well, where do I go from here? It is great to escape out for a night up on Dunblane, the mountain behind us. But the thing I always think of is when I come back down, what benefit is that going to be to me? Because if I just go and do it without doing anything about it, then that for me, it's just like, well, that's just a bit like freewheeling, okay? I've got to be able to take something positive out of that and use it to match up and counterbalance part of the reason why I went and did it, and to escape. And so it's building that up, and sometimes that you need help to get the skills to do that. But it's the understanding that we need to have that ability to really expand our chests and breathe. Be it through mindfulness or meditation or do whatever you like, but then understand how does that help us in the hours and the days and the weeks afterwards, and structure it in. And by doing that and by giving your life that much thought, then you'll find you can just do so much more as well.
So taking a breather, taking a step back, and one of the things that I fight with constantly, because I'm always wanting to be better, pursue excellence in everything that I'm doing, is the guilt. You take time out to lie in bed and read a book or something, and the guilt keeps constantly gnawing at you. You could be studying, you could be writing this book, you could be doing this, whatever. There's always 100 million things to do. You think it's okay to take time out when you need to balance?
It's absolutely essential to take time out, and our training schedules on running and for cycling, you build in the ability to the body to recover, be it one day a week. You structure your training so the intensity might be at the start of the week and the endurance at the end of the week, and your life's exactly the same. You need to structure all that in. You can't be intense the whole time. You can't do just the endurance the whole time, and you need to have a break, but you also need to structure it. And some of that comes from learning, from doing different things, and so that's part of the challenge. And when you work sort of solo, like I essentially do, then that actually takes quite a bit. It's one of the big things I miss from the team at Pernod Ricard in Blenheim, the old Montana. And I visited there last Monday and worked with the team, actually. Nearly the whole team, or the same team that were there 12 years ago when I left, was you feel like you're nestled within this incredible infrastructure, and that's allowing you to excel. And when you work by yourself, when you run solo, when you climb, when you ride your bike, a lot of that's stripped away. And so
you're everything. You're a one-man band.
You're a one-man band, and sometimes that doesn't work very well. So once again, it's that old adage, you actually do need to go and find someone to help if you can. But the other thing is you can't be intense the whole time. You need to take the lessons from training and sport and apply them to training of life, and mix it up. And the hardest thing I can do is sleep in. I'm a shocker. It's
I'm good at doing that.
I'm a shocker. It's the you got to shut all the light out. And steal my my iPad or my watch or whatever from me, so I can't see what time it is, and that's the nearest thing I can do, other than head out into the back blocks and you do the things you need to do to be comfortable and survive, and there's nothing else apart from just sitting and thinking.
Yeah,
so that's my recovery.
Have you found your attitude has changed as you've gotten older? I mean, I've when I was a little bit younger, I was intense all the time, rip, shit and bust, smash out one thing after the other, always thinking, well, there's someone tougher, harder, I've got to go longer, I've got to be more, I've got to... and then getting to a certain exhaustion point and going, for me it was after, running Death Valley a couple of times and then running through New Zealand just a few weeks later, and a 24-hour in England as well, all within 3 months. And after running through New Zealand and the pressure that put on my body and my mind, I found it hard to get out of bed. I was just completely blown. And up until that point, I've always thought I can head through the wall, anything. I'm tough, I'm resilient, and then all of a sudden it was like, shoot, I actually have lost the passion to fight. I can't find myself, and it took me a good 2 years. Even though I kept doing things, I was forcing, I'd lost the passion. And so the last couple of years I've just taken a real step back and gone, hey, this is okay, I've got to... And what interests me with you, Mark, is that you started out as a mountaineer, but you haven't let that define who you are. You're not just a mountaineer. You're all these other things. You're author, researcher, winemaker, biochemist, charitable trust dude, speaker, whatever. Cyclist. You've had one career after the other. You haven't been defined by one thing and stayed stuck in that.
No, but probably to my detriment, or to my family's detriment, really. It would have been easier to have been just one or two things. To be blunt, New Zealand doesn't cope very well with people that do lots and lots of different things. So it's a lot easier for people to understand a person that just does one thing really, really well.
Put you in a box.
Yeah, and so put you in the box, and I'm not. I get claustrophobic, so I'm never going to be in a box. So and so that's always been a bit of a challenge. I work a lot in India these days. It's I'm off there on Thursday for about 20 or 19 days or so. Very intense programs that I'll run right through India, and they get it, which is really quite refreshing.
Wow.
They get the fact that you do more than one thing, and they want to take pieces of the different things that you do for different parts of what they do, and it's quite refreshing actually.
Yeah.
It's it's very challenging working there. It's quite confronting at times, but I've been there probably 30 times in the last 4 years, perhaps 25 times in the last 4 years, and it's I'm chomping at the bit to get on the plane on Thursday and head back, because it is challenging, but it's also you get a great sense of achievement out of it as well. And
so you're working with corporates over there, running workshops, running seminars?
Yeah, working with corporates, with all sorts, with IT industry, finance, financial services, infrastructure. I was working at a steelworks in the centre of the Karnataka, right in the centre of India a while ago. And then on the last trip I was working with, 100 top executives of Infosys, a company that has 180,000 staff.
Far out.
And so you're working at all different levels with all sorts of different people. And there's just an incredible thirst and for knowledge and aspirational nature that I believe New Zealand's missed the boat in its total focus on exports to China. When India is an equal-sized market and will soon be a bigger market. It's tough, but it's that sense of achievement once again.
Absolutely. That sounds like another Everest in itself. But how did you get into India? Just because of being involved with lots of things in Himalayas and that sort of thing, or was it just something?
Partly, one of the banks in India had been using my story for many years without me knowing it, actually.
Wow.
And they'd made a whole video about me. And you're using it with their 80,000 staff, and it was just like, wow. And so that was sort of part of the door opening, but most of the door opening was with Raga De Silva and Nicola Fenton. Raga and Nicola were based in Wellington for about 10 years, and must have been about 6 years or 7 years ago they moved back to India, where Raga's originally from, and have a wee company called Global Village and one called Red Hot Merchie. And what they do is they help New Zealand companies understand India. Okay, they don't sort of help with the nuts and bolts of entering the market, but they help them understand. And we talked together for about a year, and then we run a joint venture now. And purely because I'm just a soft Kiwi, I can't negotiate with some of my Indian clients. It's like I haven't got a show. And that's so Raga does the negotiations, and Nicola does the organising. And I'm at the pointy end. Yeah.
Fantastic to be involved with something like that. That'll be quite
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. They're my other family. My family here in New Zealand get jealous of them occasionally.
Get more time with you, probably.
yeah, exactly. So it's and it's been a lot of fun. It's challenging, and you get to meet so many new, interesting people, which is the reason why I do it. It saves me.
You're across all industries. I mean, that's what I find interesting with speaking, even, and the metaphors from, our sports that you bring across to the boardroom. But you're working in a whole lot of different industries and in a different culture. That must be just, you learn so much, don't you, when you're going into, different fields of interest every week.
Oh, you do? Yeah, I mean, I take as much out of every talk I do as what I give, and hopefully all my clients out there, if they could close their ears for a minute, but effectively all the clients want exactly the same thing. They just phrase it in a different way, or have a different branding. Absolutely. Or a different industry around it, and that's around attitude and change in business. And it's those things, because many businesses are superb at giving their employees their assets, the tools that they need to do what they do, but the tools are of no use whatsoever unless you've got the actual attitude and the thirst and the desire to want to use them. And so that's, I guess, the role that you play and the role that I play in the businesses. Yep. And I'm just lucky that English is the language of business in India. So I've spoken to everyone in New Zealand about 5 or 6 times, I'm sure, but there's 1.2 billion people in India, so I've got a
hell of a market.
Yeah, wee way to go.
That's absolutely fantastic. And do you find that you actually get more recognition overseas than you do in New Zealand?
Oh, that's just the nature of New Zealand, really.
It's funny that, eh?
It's just the nature of New Zealand. It's and I can totally understand it, and I'm sure I'm the same with some of our other sports stars and the likes as well. But when you step over into a culture like that, and you actually have to make sure you take 12 hours in Singapore on the way home to let your brain sink back into Kiwi mode. Otherwise, you'll get a slap around the ear when you get home.
So different, eh? But we're such a small population for starters, and we do have certain ways of doing things. And I do sometimes think you're never going to get recognition at home. Even like, I've got a bit of the same problem, as you. I do a lot of different businesses, from jewelry to PR to speaking to books to producing documentaries, and it doesn't compute. I was pitching a book last week to my publishers, and they go, well, and as an extreme athlete, that's one very small slice of the market. People aren't really interested in that, And I go, for crying out loud, there's so much more. There's so much more stories and things that you got to tell, and different areas that you could be used in. But trying to get out of that very narrow focus is really, really, really tough.
Well, of the 5 books I've written, 4 have been a financial and a success, and that they've got on the short lists and finalists into Book of the Year and things like that. And the only one that hasn't really was the multi-dimensional one about Mark as the life everything coach and lessons for life. It was called Off the Front Foot.
Oh, bugger. Don't tell my publishers that.
It tanked.
Keep quiet, shh, Mark. Don't do that.
That's right. It's well gone now. Yeah, it's well gone.
So they only want to know about the extreme and the They don't want to know that what you've learned from it.
No, they only want to know the thing that it's exactly the same when you say someone's name, or automatically something will be linked to it. And with me, it's mountaineering generally.
Yeah.
And so outside of that, it's a hard sell. Yeah.
Shh. We'll keep that quiet between ourselves. Well, Mark, we're coming to the end of our hour. It was far too short. I mean, I could chew the fat with you, I think, for many, many hours and learn a lot from you, because you're sort of one of my super role models. I don't think I'll ever reach the dizzy heights you have, literally or metaphorically. But that was Mark Inglis on the show today, an incredible New Zealander. Mark, have you got any last words of wisdom for people out there who just want to suck you dry, get some good tips out of you?
No, not really. It's just, I mean, the important thing is always keep looking. You know, always keep the head up. Always look forward. The only reason you should ever look back is to see how far you've come, and so it's to keep the eyes to the front and keep going. You know, it's like living your life sitting on the top of a rifle barrel, and so you can exactly see where you're pointed, but you can also see everything on both sides of you as well. And that's the whole concept of, I believe, passion in life. And so go find yourself a passion and go for it.
And take every opportunity. Well, thank you very much, Mark. I wish you all the very best success in India and all your other projects. Thank you very, very much for sharing so much and so honestly and openly with us today. And yeah, I hope we can keep in touch, and you can share some more gems of wisdom with us along the way.
Thanks, Lisa.
You've been listening to Pushing the Limits, brought to you by Running Hot Coaching, your online health and fitness coaching platform. For more information, visit us at www.runninghotcoaching.com.